Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second part of our webinar, Wind Power Around the World. I'm very pleased to see that so many of you stayed with us, even during that break. I hope you had a good break, those of you who have returned, and those of you who have just joined us, warm welcome to everyone. Now, after we heard in the first part, in particular from Asian markets, I look forward now to hearing from Turkey and some European countries and African countries, and last but not least from Latin America and North America. Now it's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Professor Tanay Uya from Turkey, Eurosolar Turkey, one of the first pioneers of renewable energy in Turkey. Tanay started working for wind power more than 20 years ago, and he's been a board member, a vice president of the World Wind Energy Association for many years now. Tanay, are you ready to start? You're still
yes,
muted.
I'm ready to start. Let me share my presentation.
Very good. So Tanay, I'm pleased to announce that you're going to talk about Turkey, the situation in Turkey. Of course, a very interesting market for wind power in particular. Then I'd hand over to you, and floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just will share my presentation first. Yes, I think you can see it now, huh? No problem.
Yes.
Okay. So now I think it's okay. Okay. Thank you very much for organizing as our association. I would like to, in short, we'll be very brief to show you what happened in Turkey regarding wind energy projects. This is Turkish Wind Energy Association statistics report, which I am the founder of from 1980s. So each year our association publishes this report. This is a statistic report. This is January. And as you see in this figure, this is the cumulative installations of wind power plants in Turkey. In 2010, we had 1,375 megawatt. Now it is more than 9 gigawatts. And this is the annual installations. As you see, in 2016, we had a big jump. And now in 2020, we have 1,224. So the potential is huge, but slowly, renewable energy is getting in the picture of Turkey. Now, altogether, we have about 15% from non-hydro renewables already. And the new feed-in tariff, the support is about $4 something. The projects after June 2021, the unlicensed applications will get such a price. So this is how the monthly electricity production of wind turbines in Turkey, and July, August, and January and December looks nice. And the share of wind energy is really getting bigger and bigger. Now, on the average, it's 8.4%, and some months it becomes about 10%, little bit more than 10%. I'm not talking about daily records, but on the average, monthly, 10%. Definitely, and on the whole year, it's 8.44% of all electricity consumed in Turkey comes from wind energy. So that's how the investors are successful. We have Polat Enerji, Güriş Demirer, and Borusan as the leaders. Then we have many companies doing good work in Turkey. And these are the type of wind turbine manufacturers. Mainly in the market, we have Nordex, Enercon, Vestas, General Electric, and Siemens Gamesa. And these are the region-wise. We have, in Turkey, Aegean Sea, section of Anatolia, Marmara region, Mediterranean, Central Anatolia, Black Sea, Southeastern Anatolia, and Eastern Anatolia. And now Ege and Marmara in the western part of the country, the Marmara region, border to Bulgaria and Greece, and Thrace region of Turkey, and southern Marmara also, and Aegean part, mainly about 6 or 7 gigawatt is installed over there. So this is according to the cities of Turkey. We have Izmir, Western Anatolia, Balıkesir, Çanakkale, Thrace region, Manisa, Western Anatolia. Hatay is a Syrian site, southeastern Anatolia of Turkey. And we have very, very, very potential sites over there. And the old cities almost all over the country. In general, when I prepared Turkish Wind Atlas in 1989 with the support of State Planning Organization, at that time, our declaration was about, together with Advan Vaik, who was doing a study with OECD countries' potential. At that time, Germany's potential in that document was 8 gigawatt, and we have arrived to a value of 83 gigawatt for Turkey. And so Turkey is under 35 to 40% availability of wind we have. So still we have some way to go. So this will definitely help the transition of Turkish cities to 100% renewable energy, which with my students, we are working about on 40 cities to realize this end. So these are the wind power plants under construction. You see now in July 2020 and January 2021, we have about 4 gigawatt in 2020 and 2021. We have about 5 gigawatt wind farms being constructed. And this is how it is relative to the investors. We have about 35 investors, companies working on the construction of the new wind farms. So these are the new ones which are being constructed. They prefer to use General Electric, Nordex, Vestas, Enercon, and Siemens Gamesa wind power, wind equipment, windmills. And the region-wise, 1.5 gigawatt we have in the Marmara region again. And the other regions are more going slowly in the construction side. And this is for the cities. We have Istanbul this time, Sakarya, and Çanakkale, Yalova, and Balıkesir. These are the northwestern part of Turkey, a little bit upper than Aegean. Then we have some licensed wind power plants. This is how it is distributed to the companies. And one company, Universal Wind, has about 200 megawatt wind farm licensed. And this is again Marmara. basically. And they are in Istanbul, this company. And we have pre-licensed wind farms. One of them is an auction, 1,000 megawatt is being constructed. This is pre-licensed. And we have another about 3 or 4 gigawatt pre-licensed wind power plants. And this pre-licensed wind power plants are located in Marmara, Central Anatolia, Eastern Anatolia, Mediterranean Sea, and Black Sea. These are the tenders from the authority, and whoever gives the minimum price, they did win those tenders. And of course, this time it's all over the country because the sites are selected by the authority. Okay, that's the overall picture of what we are doing in Turkey. We are about a little bit more than 10 gigawatt, and together with the constructed ones will be about 15 gigawatt. That was why we were mentioning in 1990s, we were saying that it would be possible to reach 20 gigawatt in 2020 in Turkey. Even with this natural gas factor, natural gas agreements made, take or pay agreements, and they had a factor in slowing down the energy efficiency improvements plus renewable energy. But now with renewable energy so cheap to produce electricity, everybody is willing to go in that direction. Investors and even the decision makers think that this is a good way to handle the budget deficits of the country. So that's my presentation. If there is any question, I could be very happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanay. I think that is very good to see that the Turkish market has substantial size and that wind power plays a substantial role on the Turkish wind energy market, on the Turkish energy market. It's really has become, I think, almost a pillar of the electricity supply. Of course, we hope that in the future it will only be renewables. You're always organizing these conferences annually about 100% renewable energy. If you just want to briefly mention the dates of the conference, I think this is a good opportunity here.
So this year we are organizing since Sarıgerme workshops, which we did organize, and we were together with Stefan Zenger also and many other people, Andrew Garat and every people who did contributed to wind energy in Turkey. We did organize about 20 workshops in 1980s, and we did kindly interact with our colleagues who are more experienced in Europe. And now we are carrying this further in Istanbul with IRENEC conferences. This year it will be the 11th one of the renewable energy, 100% renewable energy conferences. Earlier we were saying that yes, it's possible and it will be possible. Let's do something together. Let's speed up type of thing. Now this year, IRENEC conference, after all the efforts of all colleagues globally, now it is European Green Deal, integration of renewables, global transformation, so all the innovations, and we are organizing this on 20 to 22 May in Istanbul, online. The last year's one is in our webpage already, which is irenec.org. You can see 3 days conference last year with participation of all people from Mark Jacobson and many people all over the world. So I think it's time to sit together, work together, and reach the target together without turning our face to the problem.
So 2 weeks from now, irenec.org, people can join that event as well. And of course, the main message: 100% renewable energy worldwide. I think that is the mission that we are all following here. We're all supporting. And thank you again for your presentation.
And that's
Yes.
and that's ironic, Ork. I think we are just following the line of the Paris Agreement and European Green Deal, which is from European Parliament initiative. We have the European Commission implementing it.
Tana, our next speaker is, I know, a little bit short of time, so let's go to the next speaker, and you type the date maybe again here in the chat window. Thank you so much. Best regards to Turkey, and now I have the pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Carlo Riker, who is the Managing Director of the German Wind Energy Association. Germany being for many years one of the biggest markets, and the German Wind Energy Association still being one of the largest national wind energy associations. Carlo, I'm very pleased to have you here with us, although I know that your time is today limited. So a special welcome to Berlin, and the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, Stefan. Thank you to being here together with you. I hope you can hear me, Stefan.
Yes.
Okay. And you can see my first slide also?
Looks very good, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's a pleasure for me to give you a short overview of the German wind energy market. Like you see here, we had a strong market in the beginning of the 2000, 2001, 2002, and then we have a little drop down, and it came. The market started to grow very fast in 2012, 13, 14, and we came up to 5 gigawatt in 2017 as new installed capacity. And then, like you see here on the side, we had a drop down from 1917 to 1918. And then even in 2019, it came down to 1 gigawatt. So the reason for that is that we changed the system in Germany from the feed-in system to the auction system, and this was not so easy for us. So we happy that we in 2020 we had the market's coming up to 1.4 gigawatt, and we hopefully will see 2 gigawatt in 2021. This is the onshore market. If you take a look on the offshore market, we will see the offshore market started very strongly in 2015. With 2 gigawatt, and then we saw like 1 gigawatt in the average in the last years, and now we have a little drop down in 2020, and in 2021 we see no new offshore project in Germany, but it will start it after that. But altogether, if we compare it to the onshore market, it is with installed capacity of 8 gigawatt. It's quite smaller when you compare to the onshore market. So altogether, we have an installed capacity on the onshore market in the end of 2020 for 55 gigawatt, and like I said, 8 gigawatt installed offshore capacity. We are very happy and proud that we altogether have more than 50% of renewable energy in the electricity market. The wind share of electricity demand is around 25%. So half of the the electricity produced out of renewable energies is coming out of wind energy in Germany. Right now, we still have 100,000 employees working in the wind industry. That was 5 years ago. That was more. We have had over 160,000 employees, and also in the renewable market altogether, we had over 400,000 employees in Germany. But not only the wind industry was not so strong in the last years, also the solar PV industry was not so strong. So we are not so happy about this development. We are looking in other countries like China and the US market and see what happened there. And when we look back 15 years ago, I remember that a lot of politicians in Germany said, are we the only market in the world who's thinking that wind energy is the future? And now it's changing a little bit. Now we're looking from Germany into other markets and say, hey, there are other markets which are much stronger than the German market. But I'm looking forward that we will see a stronger market in Germany in the next years, and also in the stronger wind industry. So what you see here is a map of Germany, and this is one challenge you can see here. Most of the installed capacity you will see in the north, like you see these two countries, states close to the North Sea. This is Lower Saxony and Schleswig-Holstein. They have installed 18.5 gigawatt. And if you compare that to Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg down in the south, you see that that there's only 4.5 gigawatt installed capacity. So, and when you see that the most of the industry is still in the south of Germany, we have a lot of electricity which has to brought from the north to the south, and we need stronger grids for that. And in this 8.5 gigawatt, there's not the offshore capacity included. So if you take the offshore wind farms of the North Sea, include this into the figure, the challenge is even higher. So this is one of the major points. If we will use energy, and we have to bring it in the south, or otherwise the south industry has to come in the north, or we have to storage the electricity. So this is a big challenge for us. So targets and challenge, like I already said, we changed from a feed-in tariff to auction system. This is especially for the German market. That was a very hard step, because we have a very decentralized market with a lot of small companies, and for them it was the auction system was not safe enough. So the investment in the new system was going down a little bit. So now we have to work with this new auction system. We see a good price in the auction system right now. The price is 6 cents per kilowatt hour. This is okay. You can produce electricity in an economical way with this price. But on the other side, we see not enough sites. We have not enough sites in Germany, and so that is a major point we have to work on. What we also see as a challenge is we see new markets. In Germany, we have right now a discussion about who's paying for the renewable energy. All parties in Germany think about changing to another way to finance the renewable energy, for example, by a CO2 price. And we also think about more and more about future markets like power to X, like using the electricity out of wind for heat and for mobilization, for e-cars. And also we think more about storage. We have to find new storage system. We think a lot, like in other countries, about using hydrogen for that. And but what is good that the targets are very high in Germany. And when you see what the Ministry for Environment said, that they want to have 95 gigawatt wind onshore till 2030. That means that we have to install each year 4.5 gigawatt new wind capacity. That means netto. So why netto? Because we have also 16 gigawatt of wind capacity, which have to be repowered in the next 3 to 4 years, because they are not running in the feed-in tariff system anymore. So they are not running economically. So you have to repower them. This is it's a big challenge for us, and also as the association, we have to think about what to do with these capacity, and we have a lot of discussion with our members who are running these wind farms, what we can do. Because on the other side, we do not see the new sites for bringing up the 4.5 gigawatt each year. But on the other way, this is the way we want to go in Germany, up to 95 gigawatt till 2030. So we have to find a way for that. What can we do? What are the things we have to do to reach this goal? Is what we need is more acceptance in Germany, because the wind farms and the wind turbines are close to cities and close to homes. So what we need is more participation. We have to bring the money to the regions and see that they're not only doing something good for the climate in these regions. They also have to see that they want that they earn money with it in these regions. Then we also have a big discussion in Germany, like in other countries, about bird protections. We have to find their ways to get a good coalition with natural associations in Germany, with environmental associations, and what we also discuss a lot is that we need less noises. The turbines are much better now when we compare to 10, 15 years ago. The noise is going down, but it's still a discussion in Germany. And what it's interesting in Germany, that we talked the last 10 years a lot about the lightning, for air protection, to the red lights, flashing light on the top of the turbines. And we are very happy that we now found a way in Germany to switch off the lights, because now we use a radar system that the light will just be switched on when the airplane is coming close to the turbine. And this will help a lot to get more acceptance. And then we, last but not least, what I want to mention is that we have right now a little bit, like I would say, like a lockdown in Germany, because we have the election in September 21, and right now we are waiting for that the politics are doing their job, and politicians doing their job, but this doesn't happen. So it's a little bit like a lockdown. We also waiting for Brussels, for the European Union, that they get the permission for the new EEG 2021. This is also something which is not good for the German market. But we are looking forward in September. It's pretty sure that the Green Party will be in Germany a member of the new government in Germany. So therefore, we think at least in September 2021, we will see a stronger market in Germany. So that's that was my presentation. Thank you very much, Stefan, to inviting me for this session here. And if you have any questions, just ask.
Thanks so much, and especially appreciate, as I know you have some private commitments today. In spite of that, you made it possible that you could present us the status of the German market, which I think is, of course, on the one hand, very encouraging when you look at a 25% share of wind power. That's amongst the larger industrialized countries, really the highest share. So that is still an example, but of course the market growth is somehow a matter of concern. But maybe as you heard from other markets, India is struggling with the auction systems as well. From Israel, we heard problems with permission processes. So all those problems are actually not unique to Germany. And I think it's very useful that we hear from each other. And I was just thinking of maybe it would be worthwhile to have a specific webinar also on permission processes, radar, bird issues, etc. Somewhere later this year. So again, Carlo, thank you very much. And I wish you well, in this case, nice afternoon. As usual, all the presentations, let me mention this again, of course, for all the speakers will be recorded or are recorded, not only now broadcasted on YouTube, but they will be later available. So everybody who wants to listen again to Carlo and about the German market can do this also in the coming weeks and months. Thank you. And then we move to another major European EU member state, that is Italy. And it's my pleasure to welcome Davide Astiaso Garcia. Davide, you are the Secretary General of the Italian Wind Energy Association, ANEF. I understand you also work as a scientist still in addition to that. ANEF, of course, is the National Wind Association, and we also have the pleasure of working together because we're planning next year our World Wind Energy Conference together with you in Italy. I think still glad we decided not to do it 2021 because this year is we're all facing challenges for events. But now we're curious to hear how the situation is and how also the COVID-19 has impacted the Italian wind power market. Davide.
Yes, Stefan, thank you again for inviting me. We are more than happy to also to host this important event next summer in Italy. And as regard the Italian situation about wind energy development, yes, we have some criticalities that are more related to bureaucratic aspects more than COVID-19 pandemic as regard the wind energy sector. I tried in 10 minutes to briefly introduce the situation. Of course, yes, we are the Italian Wind Energy Association, where I'm the Secretary General, and we include almost 100 companies dealing with the wind energy sector in all the aspects of this technology. So yes, this is a clear picture about the data in the previous years and the National Energy and Climate Plan objectives for the next decade. So as you can see, we had some first installation in during the first years of this century. Then we had a constant growth from 2004 until 2012, more or less, until the 2013, where we had a slowdown of the installations. You can see here the megawatt installed per year and the total megawatt, the total amount of megawatt installed in our country. So we have now a new challenge that is to achieve the targets of the Italian Energy and Climate Plan already presented to the European Parliament and approved. So we had, together with photovoltaic, to push, to foster the energy transition in our country, also in line with the EU Green Deal and all the strategies defined also with the new plans of the next generation EU. So we have to change, to speed up, to change the trend that we had in the previous year. And now I try to briefly clarify why we had this impasse and what we can do to change the speed of the installations. Of course, now we have almost 10 gigawatts of wind power installed, most of them in the center and in the southern region of Italy. And we have almost to double this power in the next 9 years. So the objective is around 20 gigawatt at 2030, the National Climate Plan. So we need all the efforts to achieve at least this number. We have seen that we have the potentialities, both with the greenfield installation and also with revamping and repowering of existing wind farms. We have some of them that are finishing their lifetime. So we had good potentialities also for repowering. So one of the key problem is the authorization procedures in our country that halt the installation. As you can see here in this graph, we have almost 80% decrease in the obtaining the authorizations in the last years. So we had 2.5 gigawatt of wind farms that got the authorization in the 3 years between 2012 and 2014. We have something more than 1 gigawatt in the 2015 and 2017. And in the last 3 years, 2018, 2020, we had only 589 megawatt authorized. That means that we have problems for obtaining the possibility to have new wind farms to be installed. Despite this, we have seen in the action we had during this last couple of years, we have seen that the wind covered around half of the total contingent. We have almost multi-technology auctions that join wind and PV. So if we had to follow the National Energy and Climate Plan, wind should cover 1/3 of the new power to achieve the objectives. Now we covered half of them, so the situation is not so bad, but if we do not overcome these criticalities of the new authorization, for sure we will not able to achieve this additional 10 gigawatt that we need from here to 2030. So the main causes of this slowdown are the ones that I listed in this slide very briefly. The first one is the slow issuance of authorization. Usually we take an average time of 5.5 years. The EU directive states that the maximum period is two years, so we double this timeline. So we have also excessive discretion of subjectivities in the environmental impact assessment procedures. So we do not have the same procedure in any region. So that is creating very important problems to the operators. The problem of the superintendencies that are the ones that stopped the authorization, as I showed in the previous slide, they are related with the landscaping impact, and they depend on the Ministry of Heritage and Culture. So we got 0% of the authorization on over 9 gigawatts of requests submitted in the last 3-4 years. So it is not possible that of 9 gigawatt we got 0% of authorization. So we are working hard with the institution now, with the new Italian government, with the ministries. Yesterday, our president, Simone Togni, had an internal meeting with a new ministry, Cingolani, of the ecological transition, that is the one that should help our country to achieve the National Energy and Climate Plan objective. Then we have inconsistency between the regional plans and the regulation and the national objectives. As I said, the duration of controversies we had in many regions with the sovereign tendencies is not compatible with the industrial investment because it's a very long, very bureaucratic procedures. And last but not least, the criticalities related with the access to the grid connection with the Italian TSO that we are trying to solve also, looking at what happened in other countries like in Spain with the new directive of last year. So the proposal we are promoting with our institution and government and decision makers is the simplification of the authorization procedures, defining precise timeline to speed up this process, and also trying to define a checklist to exclude from the environmental impact assessment the repowering basing on the assessment of the impact compared with the current situation. So it is not possible what happened today that if I present a repowering wind farm, a repowering intervention, I had to follow the same procedures as a greenfield. So we asked for a comparative procedures from the existing situation to the new one we are proposing. That's very important for the repowering of the existing wind farms. We have to find a solution for the conflicts at the level of prime minister's offices, also through the new interministerial committee already that has been defined in the last months in Italy. It's called the CITE for the ecological transition again. And we are also pushing for having auction until 2030 because we estimated that there are no main costs for our country to get another 10 years of auctions with single technology, not together with PV, as we have seen the unsuccess of the last couple of years. And last but not least, we are asking funds starting from the Next Generation EU. We do not need any fund from the wind energy sector. We only need incentives for the research, especially on nanotechnologies or the end of life, especially for the blades, the end of life of the blades, and also the promotion of power purchase agreements, establishing a specific guarantee fund that could help investors to speed up this new and interesting possibility for our wind operators. So that's all, and of course I will be pleased to answer if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Davide. I think that was very impressive. I think you showing a quite good growth, similar to or more or less in parallel with the German growth at the time when Europe was still, I think, the hub of the global industry. But of course, it's quite surprising in a way that you have such big problems with permission processes, like we heard also from other countries, but that seems to be worse in Italy than in other parts of the world, indeed. So, of course, we hope that you can overcome this. And again, brings me to my point that I just made earlier. I think we will take this up for a separate webinar to discuss the different aspects of permission processes in the different countries and have some international exchange about this. Yeah, I don't see any questions at the moment for you. If there are any questions coming up, please stay with us. Again, thank you very much. And of course, we look very much forward next year when hopefully the pandemic is over to come all together to Rimini and then celebrate the progress in Italian wind power and celebrate our community and Italy, of course. Thanks so much. Now I would like to hand over to our next speaker. Our journey is now, we're leaving Europe, traveling to North Africa, in particular to Egypt. And now I have the pleasure to welcome Professor Galal Osman, who is the president since decades now of the Egypt Wind Energy Association. Egypt being one of the first countries on the African continent which installed wind farms, and Egypt still is one of the major African wind power markets. Galal, you have been, you used to be a professor at the university in Egypt, and in that capacity promoting wind power in your country. We also had a World Wind Energy Conference, I remember, 10 years ago in Cairo under little bit challenging conditions, but it's been good to see that there is a wind market in Egypt, and now I have the pleasure again. Welcome, and the floor is yours. Galal. Galal, I can see you, but you're still muted. Is there a technical problem? Galal? Okay. Galal, I'm not sure what exactly is a problem now, but maybe we make use of the time and ask our next speaker, Khalid Binhamu. Ah, there you are. Okay. Galal, I can see you now. Can you hear me? Shall we try this, or shall we continue with the... Okay, very good.
No, I am ready. And the presentation is with John. You can start it. Wind energy in many countries.
Excellent. So you're not only speak about Egypt,
yes,
but...
Okay, that's it. Thanks, John. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Please go
now
ahead.
Wind is coming, very strange environment. If you are looking to many countries, where it is 19 countries, and it has 60% of the world oil reserves and 45% of the world natural gas. So this is an oil country, and now going to renewable. The ambition charted now for the region is to go up till 80 giga of renewable energy by 2030. But the wind portion out of it is only 6 giga, which is less than 1% of the world. So it's a very modest number. Next. Okay. This is the renewable energy capacity target in the Middle East and the African region from 2020 to 2050, from very ambitious item on the top for Djibouti and Egypt. And in the bottom, we have Palestine and a very, very modest idea. So with 19 countries, there is a complete variable plan for everyone. Next, please. And this is the wind energy growth, two scenarios, which is a fast track and the slow track. Ambitious is to go up to 6 or 7 giga. But the very ambitious one is to go 10 or 12 giga collectively in the region. Let us move to the next one. This shows that now it is not only Egypt or oil countries, there is different. Next one, please. It will be MENA when the incremental growth by procurement type of selected country between 2020 and 2025. Can I get the next one, please? Can we get the next slide, if possible?
Which slide are you looking at the moment?
Many annual weather increment. The next one after this one, John.
Yeah, it seems like it's frozen. Your.
There are 5 slides. 5 slides.
Stefan, can you confirm which slide do you look at the moment?
I can see Egypt now.
Many annual wind increment.
Okay, I will stop the sharing and I will put it again because it seems like you got a frozen slide there. So it was
or we go now to Egypt. Let us jump now to Egypt.
Egypt, we are in Egypt now, no?
I just want to concentrate that different players are existing in the Arab countries, which is very strange. It's not only, in addition to Morocco, not only Egypt, but even the oil country, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and then Oman is coming, and Jordan, with different projects everywhere, and they are shifting to renewable, solar and wind and PV and CSP and energy storage. So there is already different campaign and different companies and different financial systems. Egypt has its integrated sustainability energy strategy, ISIS, is to go to 20% by 2022 and 42% by 2035. They are not such ambitious like the Nile, targeting the 100%, but now, you know, this is a strategist in the market. 20% by next year and 42% by 2035. This means 52 gigawatt of post large scale distributed and energy grade renewable energy. And then policy are there to have different framework, metering, feed-in tariff, and IPP model projects. So there are different financial scheme to go for the process. Next one is the wind energy projects in Egypt. There is 11 projects, and they are totaling 4,610 megawatts of wind. This is a table, and they are not only on the Gulf of Suez or on Suez Canal, but they are going also to the desert, near Luxor and MENA. In the desert, they are having 3 or 4 wind projects. So wind farming is spreading across the country, not only on the Gulf of Suez or Gulf of Zayd or the main Gulf of Oil, and then on the River Nile. So this is the idea. Now we come to the wind farms. I was yesterday invited to environmental and the social impact assessment of wind farms by Lekila, and a British company. And I was very happy to find that they have a culture dimension and collect the people from Ras Garib, and they are offering them how to if they are illiterate, and give lighting, lit lamps for the streets, and even helping them to get some jobs. So the culture dimension of having a culture change in the isolated community where they have strong wind is very much now appreciated. This is Ras Gharib wind farm. 262 megawatt. And the dominating company on the Egyptian market is Siemens Gamesa and Vestas. These are the companies in the market getting 2.1 megawatt wind turbine, and they are spreading in Ras Gharib wind farm. The next one is West Bak wind farm, 250 megawatt wind turbine, and this is again Siemens Gamesa, and it is IPP, independent power producer. And then we go for Gulf of Suez wind farm, 250 megawatt, and now it is not a new Danish company. This is Vestas Wind Systems. Vestas Wind System, 250 megawatt. This is the second player in the market. Another wind farm, Gulf of Suez, 252 megawatt, and they have EPC, procurement contracting, and the beauty is the financing body, European Investment Bank, KfW, Bank of Crédit Environnement, Agence Française de Développement, and the European Commission. And they are taking care of the finance of the Gulf of Suez wind farm. So many financial players are in the Egyptian market. And then the next one is 500 megawatt. And I should mention, it was planned to be a coal power plant by Shanghai Electric. And then the environment in the country were not in agreement to get much more CO2. So the decision which giving to Emirati company Nuwais has been canceled, and it shifted to go for wind company 500 megawatt. And it is a consortium of ENGIE, Energy Services, 35%, Toyota Corporation, Holding Corporation, and then Orascom, 40%. So financial teams are getting ready. This for Egypt. Now I jump to the Arabian Gulf of Oman. Oman is planning 300 megawatt from the water procurement company. And Oman has different farms, different wind energy, because it enjoys very good wind. GE, Renewable Energy, has provided the biggest wind turbine in the region, 3.8 megawatt wind turbine, connected to the grid. After Oman, we come to Jordan, the borders. Jordan has different places, Ma'an, Aqaba, Irbid, different projects, and they are having 150 megawatt of solar and 50 megawatt of wind, plus hydro storage. This is in Ma'an in Jordan. And then by Nuna, another wind project, 200 megawatt in Jordan. Energy storage is having pump storage to be installed by them. And then the last wind farm by Southern Korean company, Dailim Energy, and the Korea Southern Power developed 51.75 megawatt wind power project at Tafila, 140 kilowatts southwest of Amman. And then to the last country in MENA, which is not Western one, is Saudi Arabia. The oil company and the natural gas company is now having very target of wind projects. They are looking to get 86 gigawatt. The next 5 years, 27.3 gigawatt, and then the next 12 years, 58.7 gigawatt. And the budget by Saudi government is $50 billion to go for that. And it is mixture of wind farm and PV and CSP. Then in Saudi Arabia, we have Domat El Gandal by Masdar and the Electricité de France Renewable Consortium, $5 million power projects in Saudi Arabia. This is 400 megawatt in the north of Saudi Arabia. And then in Yanbu, another Saudi city, there is in the pipeline 850 megawatt. And please remember, this is the oil country with natural gas, and the solar. Now they are having in different locations wind projects. The last top point is UAE, United Arab Emirates, have green growth strategy, and they have the electricity demand of 27.6 gigawatt. And third Banias is an island near Abu Dhabi, 28.8 megawatt. And then another Emirates, there are 7 Emirates. In El Fujairah, they have wind farms also. And in Masafi, another one. And the Spanish company is playing in Emirates. And I should stop now due to the time limit. And as you see, there is different countries already in MENA, regardless they are oil and the natural gas, and different companies are players, and different financial schemes are there, and the social dimension being introduced. So I think regardless, the number is not that high, but wind energy is spreading in the region. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Gadal, for this very comprehensive overview of what's happening in the MENA region and Arabic countries. And maybe let me add that I think many people found it very encouraging that Saudi Arabia announced recently, that the Crown Prince announced that Saudi Arabia is aiming at 50% renewable power by the year 2030, which is then really a substantial share of renewable energy. So it seems that also those oil-rich countries have understood that that's not the future. Oil is not the future, but renewable energy. So thank you so much. I see one...
May I add something very small? Now,
yeah, if I can just...
came by Desertec Industrial Initiative. We have Hydrogen MENA Alliance. So hydrogen is being introduced in the region. Thank you.
Yes, so I think that's already answering here. There are 2 questions, same related to green hydrogen targets. Of course, we know that in particular, Saudi Arabia is investing now a lot in green hydrogen.
In NEOM, the new project is coming.
Yes. Again, thank you very much, and greetings to Cairo. Then we will stay in the region, just travel to the west, and now I have the pleasure, and I think the topic hydrogen will still be with us when now we will listen to our next speaker, Khalid Binhamu, who is the managing director of Sahara Wind, which is aiming at developing wind power, in particular in Morocco. But Khalid, I'm sure you will not only talk about Morocco, but also about the neighbor countries. And yeah, Khalid, you are also, let me mention that the treasurer of the World Wind Energy Association. This is your voluntary position. We're very pleased to have you now here with us. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I don't know whether you can see my presentation.
Not yet.
Okay, either, I'm trying to share it, and I'm trying to see how I can share it. Let me see. Where is the sharing option on Zoom?
Bottom usually, share screen.
I said, yeah, it's clicked here. Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. And I am almost there.
Coming.
Yes. So I will talk about the power market in Morocco mainly, and obviously this is the most dynamic market in the Maghreb region if we include Tunisia, Algeria, and Mauritania. And to that aim, I will basically go very rapidly through what's been achieved to date. Morocco started right after Egypt, installing the first large-scale wind farms from the year 2000 all the way to today. We have about 1.4 gigawatt installed. Most recently, there has been a 200 megawatt wind farm, which has been commissioned on January 7th. It's part of the Morocco's integrated wind energy program of about 1 gigawatt, 850 megawatts. And we have further wind farms that are going to be put online in the coming months, if not years, so that by the year 2023, we are likely to end up with a 2.6, 2.7 gigawatt wind farm portfolio, operating wind farm portfolio. As you can see, there are a variety of frameworks from private, IPPs, EPC publics, and successful Law 1309, which enabled the private sector to feed in industrial power loads with renewable electricity, having a direct contract with energy consumers that will be provided with green electricity. And this is really to tap into Morocco's significant wind potential, which is estimated onshore at about 6,000 gigawatt. It's tremendous. And with the productive potential of 11,500 terawatt hours. So compared to Europe's 3,500 terawatt hour global consumption, this is quite significant. The capacity factors, thanks to the trade winds blowing on the Sahara coastline, are significant. We're talking about capacity factors of above 60, 70% in some occurrences. So that enables you to produce.
Khalid, you're muted. Khalid, for some reason you're muted. We cannot hear you.
Yeah, for some reason it says somebody muted me.
Now it's back. Yeah, it happened, obviously. I don't know why. It happened to me as well. Please continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, what I was saying is that Morocco has the potential to produce very competitive wind electricity. It has proven that in 2016 by already signing what was back then the world lowest wind electricity cost of about 3 cents per kilowatt hour, which included the transfer of the wind blade manufacturing factory, 80% dedicated to export. It's currently being doubled even. And a very high, up to 70% of local component integrative ratio of local worth of the wind farm. So this is really a success story thus far that we look forward to expand on. This has obviously led to a market consolidation of manufacturers where Siemens Gamesa is basically the main supplier of Moroccan wind energy projects. In 2020, we have obviously had a slight drop of about 3 to 4% of wind energy generations. We had a little bit less wind. This is likely to be increased significantly in the year ahead. And basically, we produced about 4,500 gigawatt hours of electricity out of a total of 38 gigawatt hours, 38,000 gigawatt hours. Mostly 67% of that load of Morocco's electricity is still coal-fired power generation. And renewables are gradually filling the gap. We are right now, our target of 2020 was to reach 42% of renewable electricity. We're at 36% right now, so we're a little bit behind, but we aim to reach we have another target for 2030 that is 52% renewables by 2030, and we're likely to reach this capacity by 2026. And so we're looking at reviewing upwards the renewable energy targets by 2030. And this target can also be exceeded by the tremendous power to X prospects that Morocco has. Obviously, and I will highlight that in the next slide, Morocco has interconnections with Spain that will be expanded and with Portugal. The Moroccan utility experienced obviously some load challenges with the COVID-19 crisis, with the drop in electricity consumption and the delayed payment of electricity bills. There has been some positive regulatory signals that have been sent, mainly for large-scale projects, and looking at funding both large-scale projects and the integrative prospects of generating green power as well as green molecules. And the main challenge is really right now for Morocco to be able to transfer the excess generation capacity. The majority of the wind electricity is generated on the Sahara coastline, which is about 1,200 kilometers from Morocco's loads, electricity loads located further north. And so that is why the idea here is to look at substituting, first of all, Morocco has 72% of the world phosphate reserves. It's a paleontological footprints of the trade winds. And the phosphate are processed into fertilizers. And for that industry, Morocco imports about 1.8 to 2 million tons of gray ammonia every year to supply global fertilizer markets, to which it has about 20% market shares. And so the idea is to use then the outstanding wind resource to produce green ammonia, obviously from wind electrolysis, to produce green hydrogen. And only in doing so, Morocco has the potential to add about 6 gigawatts of wind power to its current wind energy portfolio. And with that scale, we know that we will be able not only to transfer further wind manufacturing industries, but also power high voltage direct current power lines to feed into Moroccan load centers and enable power exchanges with our northern neighbors and our southern neighbors in Mauritania that are also implementing wind energy projects. There is a 100 megawatt wind farm right at the border with Morocco, near the city of Nouadhibou, that is being Boule Noir specifically, that is going to be commissioned in the coming months. And this will enable this country to scale up its wind portfolio and also look into the prospects. Mauritania's main industry is the export of iron ore. And there is obviously the great potential of being able to process iron ore into pure iron, into carbon emission-free steel. And this is a scalable process that can be done. And for that, Mauritania has outstanding wind resources. Obviously, the technology is still being developed in Europe as part, obviously, of the Green Deal and the hydrogen strategies of both the European Union, the German, French, and various countries' hydrogen strategies. But it is obvious, I mean, I think with confidence we can say that by the year 2025, those technologies will be available for Mauritania to be able to substitute actually the export of iron ore into steel products. Iron ore represents about 70 to 75% of Mauritania's budget revenues, and these are likely to be tremendously increased if the local value can be enhanced. And obviously, if you can enhance the local integration of wind using these hydrogen processes, you're obviously firming the electricity locally, and you will then be able, Mauritania will be able to feed very cheap wind electricity from the Saharan coastline down to sub-Saharan Africa, where there is a big demand for electricity. And that, in essence, will conclude my presentation at this. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for, I think, really showing us some impressive numbers. I mean, the market for wind power in Morocco itself sounds still modest compared to the global market size, but then also doubling the share in the near future is impressive. And of course, the potential you're talking about, that sounds very, very, very impressive with, you said 600 terawatt of wind potential just in Morocco alone.
It's 6,000 gigawatts.
6,000, I'm sorry, yeah.
Potential.
Yeah. That is really an impressive number indeed.
And, yeah.
So we don't need to worry about the amount of energy
winds
that we have. It's just
yes,
about
absolutely.
How to...
provides prospects for an energy transition that will probably cover both North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as Europe. And we look forward to that happening, hopefully sooner rather than later. We have a 2050 deadline. to meet, and I think it's time to work as soon as possible on that. And I think Moroccan authorities are very much aware of that.
Very good. Thank you so much. Now, our next speaker will be speaking about the Sub-Sahara Africa, and I wonder, Mamadou Diarra, whether he is with us. I cannot see him yet. Mamadou, do we have him here with us? Sean? Have you seen him?
I don't think he's here.
Okay, well, we're just talking this morning, but okay. We will find out then. Let's continue with our first presentation from Latin America, from the Americas. And that first presentation, we start from the east and go to the west, would be from Dr. Everaldo Feitosa. Everaldo is the managing director of Eólica in Brazil, based in Recife. And Everaldo, he's been working many years as a developer. Before that, Everaldo, you were also a professor at the university, and you've also been involved in associations. You've been on the board of World Wind Energy Association also many years. Again, more than 20 years of experience in wind power in Brazil, but also with international background. Now we have the pleasure to hearing from you how Brazil is doing these days. Everaldo, you are with us. I've seen you. No? Ah, there we are. Okay.
Okay, right.
A warm welcome to Recife, and now the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Stefan. Well, I'm going, in spite of the bad situation in Brazil related to the COVID and the government without sense of responsibility, at least I can say to you some of the good news related to wind and solar energy. Can I have the first slide, please, Stefan? Yes. Okay, I'm going to very quickly have this broad brush on the figures on wind and solar energy in Brazil. Next one, please. So this is the real numbers of last year, Brazil installed capacity. And in reality, it's very important to see that wind is the second source of energy. In reality, in this pizza graphic, the wind is the orange side. And the first one is hydro with 103 gigawatts. The second one is wind with 18 gigawatts of installed capacity. When you sum up the hydro, wind, biomass, small hydro, and solar PV altogether, we have 145 gigawatts of installed capacity. And in reality, this is equivalent to 83% of renewable energy in Brazil. So this is a very high number. And it's very important to say that in spite of the political situation in Brazil, renewables, mainly wind and solar, are still keeping the pace. And this is at least some good news. Next slide, please. Okay, in this slide, we can see the two main sources of wind. That's okay, yes. The wind and solar. So wind in operation, we have 18 gigawatts in operation, 4.2 gigawatts in construction, and 7.9 gigawatts in development. It's very important to mention that when I say 7.9 gigawatts in development, yeah, these are projects ready to build. So they are ready for the free market, or ready for the auction system in Brazil. So in reality, wind is keeping the pace, as I said before. On the other side, solar, in the left side of this slide, I'm showing only the centralized solar PV, not the small residential and the distributed power that's also increasing. So we have 3.3 gigawatts in operation, 1.2 in construction, and 13.5 ready to build. Next one, please. So therefore, we have this kind of growth. It's important to mention the total number of nearly 18,000 megawatts in 2020. And we can see that in spite of the situation that we have, as I mentioned before, we have an optimistic scenario of having 40,000 megawatts in the year 2030. So this was a prognostic that we have made during the last conference in Rio, in Brazil, of our association. So the tendency to reach 40 gigawatts in 2030 is still a very high tendency, and we are very optimistic related to that. Next one, please. So one of the main reasons for this kind of attitude favorable to winds is related to the average capacity factor of wind farms in Brazil. So in reality, we have between, this is the average, 42.7%. So most of the wind farms at the moment in the Northeast, they are operating at 50% capacity factor, 53% capacity factor. Therefore, with this kind of fuel, of very high quality fuel, we can have very low prices of wind energy. Prices in the range of $17, $20, $25 per megawatt hour. So this is one of the main reasons why, in spite of the political negative effect in Brazil, we are still having this tendency to grow. Next one, please. So related to solar, it's very important to mention the exponential growth of distributed power PV. So in this graphic, let's concentrate on the year 2020. So the orange is the centralized solar PV, and the light yellow is the distributed PV. So in reality, the distributed PV is increasing more rapidly than the centralized solar. And at the moment, we have nearly 70% of the projects in Brazil distributed solar PV. So we have nearly 5,000 megawatts of distributed solar PV in Brazil. So the tendency is to increase. Of course, the technology of solar is very simple compared with wind. And so this is one of the reasons why we still have a vast area of exponential growth in solar in Brazil. Next one, please. So just to give you an idea, when I say that the two main markets are the auction and the free market, what we are having now is 10% of the produced energy in Brazil by the solar projects are sold in the free market, and 30% of all the wind installations, all the energy generated by the wind installation are directed to the free market. So the tendency is to have 50% of the electricity from the both solar and wind going to the free market. Therefore, we have giant perspectives, and mainly at the moment with the tendency of the companies to be involved in green and renewable energy. Next one, please. So when I make this kind of presentation, trends for 2024, why 2024? Because in reality, in Brazil, the auctions and mainly the free market, you have the contracts in which if you sign a contract today, you have to deliver the energy in 4 years' time. So in reality, this is a very important graphic in which it is very real, showing all the contracts signed up to 2020. So in reality, this is reality. All the projects will be installed and operating by 2024. So we can see here the wind with the number of 2080, nearly 20,000 megawatt of installed capacity in 2024. That's very important, very big numbers. That's the reason why we believe that we are going to reach 40,000 megawatt in 2030. Next one, please. And the same as solar, you see what I have mentioned before, the exponential growth of the distributed solar PV, the light yellow. And of course, the orange is a centralized solar PV. The centralized, we have something like 10-15% of contribution in Brazil. So I would say that in next years, well, next 4-5 years, the tendency will go for distributed solar PV and large wind power plants in Brazil. Next one. I think that this is the last slide. I would like to thank you for the time and the attention for my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Everaldo. That's been very encouraging to see how the market develops. I know, of course, we know that the situation now in general in your country is not so easy, so we wish you all the best for that. Still, we all remember that many of us visited you not that long ago, a bit over a year ago, before all this pandemic started, and actually the last World Wind Energy Conference for the time being we came together in Rio de Janeiro in November 2019. At that time, we did not really expect that for the time being we rely on such a format to meet and exchange information. Yeah. Yes, but also I think it is very important to see how the market in Brazil develops on a power purchase agreement basis. That's something that we've also seen from Australia, where the government is not so much driving the development, but it's really the enterprises, citizens that are investing, and because just it makes sense economically. So Everaldo, I don't see any questions for you. Again, thank you very much, and I'm sure people will still be interested in your presentation. It will also be made available after this webinar on YouTube.
Okay. Just one comment, Steph. I think it's very important considering the situation of the COVID in Brazil. So in spite of a government without any sense of responsibility, what we see is that the companies are really going to another direction, So this is the reason why we are having this kind of increasing of solar and wind in Brazil. Yeah. So as you said before, we in Brazil are neglecting the government, neglecting the situation, assuming that we are going to change the president in 2022 and go in the right direction. So this is what we expected to have next year, something different from what we are having in Brazil at the moment.
Thank you very much. And I mean, we can see now, I hope we will see what will happen in the United States. I think at the moment it seems like we will have the big economic powers, European Union, China, and the United States. They start now a competition, and I think we're very keen on seeing more countries, major and smaller countries, to join this competition. Who is going to be the first in renewable energy? I'm sure that that's going to happen in the very, very near future.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we continue our journey, traveling a little bit to the south, Argentina, and I have the pleasure now to welcome Hector Pagani, who is the president of the Argentine Wind Energy Association, an association which was created also more than 20 years ago by one of the founders of the World Wind Energy Association, Rico Spinadel, who passed away around a year ago. And now your association still is carrying his name in your name. we are very pleased to have you with us here. And of course, from Enrico already, we heard often about the huge wind potential that Argentina has and about the prospects for wind power in your country. Now we are curious and looking forward to hearing from you about latest developments in Argentina.
Okay. You present or I present? Okay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Steve Sanchez, for the invitation to this webinar. Next, please. The Argentine energy matrix as of February 2021 is made up of thermal energy, 61%, hydraulic energy, 23%, nuclear energy, 5%, renewable energy, 11%. Next, please. With the generation of energy, we see how wind energy produces 8% of all energy. That is a very important role in the generation of renewable energy. Please. Next, please.
I cannot hear you very well. Is it possible that you change your microphone a bit?
What?
Did you speak up?
Sí, que se escucha un poco suave. Si puedes hablar un poco más duro.
Okay. From the year 2015, with the law 20,181, the development of wind energy begins in our country. As to March 2021, we have total power hours, 97 power with 5,229 megawatts of power, of which 57 wind farms with 3,107 megawatts of power are operational. 10 wind farms with 585 megawatts of power under construction. Without data, they are parks that for different reasons have not yet started. 28 parks with 1,426 megawatts of power. These parks are retaining transport capacity, and the Secretary of Energy will have to decide what to do with them, since this transport capacity is needed for other parts that shall go out to tender in the Sunland connection nodes. Two wind farms with 111 megawatts of power resounded. Next, please. Next. The following slide shows name of each wind farm and their status. Next, please. Next. 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 Okay. In this slide, you can see the location of each wind farm in our country. Next, please. What is the projection until 2030? For this, we must consider some variables. By 2025, we will arrive with 20% of renewable energy. In 2021, consume 132,000 gigawatt-hours per year. In 2020, we consume 128,000 gigawatt-hours, similar to what consumed in 2018, due to the pandemic and economic crisis. As of 2022 and subsequent years, an annual increase of 3% cumulative in electric energy. We will reach 2030 with installed wind power capacity of 5,795 megawatts. These values are low. Since if we want to reach 2050 with 85% renewable energy, with 36% wind energy to tend to zero greenhouse gas emission. Wind energy in this condition will reach 14% of energy generation in Argentina by 2025. We should gradually stagger the energy generated to that 2030, 24% wind energy, 2040, 30% wind energy, and 2050, 36% wind energy. Next, please. What is the future and how they continue growing in wind energy? For this, we must start doing things. Expand transmission capacity and electric power transmission line. Today, my often saturated. It's necessary to invest $5,000 million to improve the electric transport capacity in our country. Sold 28 projects with 1,426 megawatts not started. Continue bidding for new wind farms. In Argentina, we are beginning to talk about green hydrogen. We must begin to expand the installation of renewable energy with grid power, especially wind energy. Next, please. Next, wind tax. In 2020, in the province of Chubut, the municipality town of Puerto Madryn created the two new taxes for wind farms located in that municipality, which affect 9 wind farms with 681 megawatts of power. This tax is 4.5% of annual billing of each park. This tax was again 2 articles to law 27,191. Article 17. They cannot be taxed on any tax until December 31, 2025. Article 13. Companies may transfer to the price agreed in the renewable energy supply contract signed. The higher cost derived from increase in taxes charged produced with after the conclusion of such contract. Despite this kind of company, cameras and association, today there is not answer that this it will end in justice if it's not resolved before. Next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very good to see the progress that you are making now in Argentina, with also, I would say it's a little bit similar to Morocco, huge, very huge wind potential and great wind resources that you have in your country. I would like to say thank you very much, and we hope, of course, that the pandemic situation is not affecting your country in a too badly way, or let me say that we all hope that the situation is soon getting much better than it is at this point of time. I don't see any questions at the moment. Maybe just from my side, there is one question I may then also ask Everaldo about green energy, let's say green hydrogen. What are the prospects of hydrogen production at this point of time? Would you see this for domestic use rather, or is there a discussion also to produce green hydrogen for export?
First, for internal use, and after for exportation for all world. Depend the cost of the renewable energy, the principal cost for hydrogen production.
So there is some plans for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, the plan, first, we talk with the government for start to promotion engineer and development the hydrogen in Argentine.
Well, thank you again. Thank you very much. And greetings to Buenos Aires. Are you in Buenos Aires?
In Buenos Aires, now is the problem. The Buenos Aires now is the COVID high the level to contact, and after all good.
Well, we send our best greetings to Buenos Aires and to Argentina, and thank you again very much for joining us. And then I have the pleasure to go on with our next speaker. Great welcome to Michael Barnard, who is an expert for wind energy, renewable energy, also electric mobility, as I understand. And he's been working in that field in the United States, but also in Canada, advising organizations, working with associations. And Michael, great pleasure to have you here with us, and a very good morning. And now I would like to invite you to let us know how the wind markets in the United States and Canada were performing. Of course, we are, I think, all aware of for many of us, a surprising record in the US, but of course we want to know more details and also more about Canada. Michael.
Guten Morgen, Stefan, and everybody else around the world. Yeah, it's been a surprising year for all of us globally. But I'd like to spend a few minutes closing this session out, talking about first the United States, and I'll spend a bit of time on Canada because there's interesting stuff in both countries going on. As you probably know, the American Wind Energy Association and the Solar Organization have joined into a Clean Power Association, a similar trend which is occurring globally, just as happened with Canada. And so now we have different graphics and different sources of information, which is always fun. But in the United States, you've got some summary stuff on the left-hand side. The GDP dropped as everybody's GDP dropped last year. The number of gigawatts grew quite substantially last year. There were 17 gigawatts of new wind energy commissioned last year. That was against an expectation of 23 gigawatts, however. So, COVID did have an impact, just not nearly as much of an impact as it could have had on that. And if you think about, the average wind farm deployment, it's pretty socially distanced. I'm sure this has been said before, but I'm the cleanup batter and it's 6 a.m. where I live. So I didn't hear the previous speakers. My apologies to all of you. That was a generation in 2020 of 338 terawatt hours from wind energy, which is a record 8.4% of production. Electrical demand was down, wind energy was up, and the combination was good. The offshore wind continues to limp along, and we're still around a terawatt hour per million people, and around 16 terawatt hours per trillion GDP. That hasn't changed a lot since a year ago when I last reported, because both population and GDP have adjusted as well. Obviously, the big news in the United States is that the United States has re-entered the Paris Agreement, which is excellent after the previous 4 years. And from a wind energy perspective specifically, President Biden and Kamala Harris and their climate czar, John Kerry, are focusing strongly on offshore wind. Currently, there's the single small wind farm off the East Coast, but they're projecting 30 gigawatts by 2030. And secondarily, the $2 trillion infrastructure plan just announced has a provision for 100% carbon neutral electricity for each state by 2035. One of the big drivers from a policy perspective of wind energy in the United States has been the renewable portfolio standards for each state, which say how much of their energy must be carbon neutral. And that has been expanded somewhat. You notice the careful term carbon neutral. The Biden administration is not against nuclear energy. It's unlikely that there will be any new nuclear starts simply because the past 15 years of nuclear generation in the United States has been a series of cost overruns, as is quite traditional. Some of Biden's competitors were explicitly anti-nuclear. Biden is neutral on it. The Biden-Harris administration, on the other hand, is better than the Obama-Biden administration in that it's not a all of the above nuclear, all of the above energy policy, but explicitly a carbon neutral policy. They are expecting more, probably far more from carbon capture than is at all realistic. But the goal of 2035 for carbon neutral electricity in the United States is very, very welcome. As you can see, there's an awful lot of plans for new wind and solar projects across the United States. Moving on to Canada, because we also have very interesting news here. Also a dip in our GDP. We're expected to have about 400 megawatts of new wind energy installed in 2020, and we only achieved 170 gigawatts. The impact of COVID on wind generation deployment in Canada was greater. We had have an expectation of only another 160 to 170 megawatts of new generation in 2021, but there is good news coming. We have no offshore wind either. The only potential place where offshore wind was explored was in the Great Lakes in Ontario in the early 2000s, and that was shut down for political reasons. People didn't want to see lights from their, beachfront properties, a standard complaint in North America. I don't see a lot of, while there's a tremendous amount of resource, especially in the east on the shallow water off the banks, I'm not seeing a lot of expectation in the next year or two for offshore wind to be something seriously considered in Canada, in part because we have such vast, massive spaces on land with good resources and no people. 80% of the population is concentrated within about 160 kilometers of the border with the United States. So it's basically like Australia, we're a rim of people along the bottom of a big empty country. Some of the interesting parts for Canada, one of our interesting variances is that we depend quite substantially on hydroelectric power, and in Ontario on nuclear power, as well as hydroelectric. As a result, our emissions per kilowatt hour of CO2 are very small in most of our provinces. But there are two very big outlier provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan. BC This is tons of CO2e per capita, but just to translate that into grid terms, British Columbia, BC, sees an average of 12.9 grams of CO2e per kilowatt hour. Alberta next door sees an average of 800 grams of CO2e per kilowatt hour because of coal generation and gas generation. Saskatchewan next door to Alberta is similar. They're both very high emissions electricity because of the substantial amount of fossil fuels. Ontario is down around 40 grams of CO2e. Quebec, with its massive amount of hydroelectric up in the James Bay projects and the like, as well as the by far the largest installed wind energy capacity in Canada, is around 1.3 grams of CO2e per kilowatt hour. But the good news here is that Canada has now introduced a carbon price, and the carbon price very explicitly impacts wind, the potential for wind energy, especially in our highest wind resource projects, provinces, which happen to also be the highest emissions provinces. Alberta and Saskatchewan are our Great Plains provinces, north of the American Great Plains, where wind has done so well. They have also the most expensive electricity in Canada at 18 to 19 cents Canadian per kilowatt hour, compared to half that in British Columbia next door, and a third of that in Quebec, for example. Alberta had explicitly, under a previous administration, intended to shut down coal generation by 2030 and replace it 2/3 with wind and solar and 1/3 with natural gas generation. The new administration, a more conservative North American political party, and hence problematic from this regard, thankfully maintained that intent up to a point. They expected, however, to increase the amount of generation by natural gas quite substantially and depend less on wind and solar, roughly 50-50 split instead of a 2/3, 1/3 split. However, the carbon price, many of you have possibly heard of it. The Liberal government, after winning the election in 2019, last year uncapped the carbon price from $50 Canadian to a peak in 2030 of $170 Canadian. $170 Canadian is roughly $133 US. To give a context, it is one of the highest carbon prices in the world. It is one of the most broadly applied carbon prices in the world. And personally, as a Canadian, I'm very proud that this initiative is occurring in my lifetime. I just wish it had occurred 30 years ago, as do we all. That has a significant impact upon Alberta. This is a projected megatons CO2e based upon this carbon price for the grid electricity. And it's very big numbers. Now, Alberta's grid, the way to read this chart, on the left-hand vertical axis, you'll see that the projected CO2e grid intensity was roughly 800 grams of CO2e per kilowatt hour today. The previous carbon price had already made coal unprofitable, and so it was expected to drop off the grid by 2023. A very positive outcome already. It was expected to be almost entirely replaced by natural gas with the addition of wind and solar resources. So that blue line coming down from the upper left is the projection without the increase in the carbon price. The line below it is the expected grid intensity reduction with the new carbon price. It no longer becomes profitable for most gas generation to be built compared to wind and solar, for the very specific reason that the $170 per ton carbon price adds $8.50 to a gigajoule of natural gas. And natural gas generation depends upon that natural gas, obviously. That turns into $60 per megawatt hour of wholesale cost adders to natural gas generation. That makes it unprofitable compared to wind and solar, which obviously are not going to be paying that carbon levy. That has a cumulative, you can see the line coming in from the bottom left, reading that against the right-hand vertical axis. That is the projected megatons, the avoided megatons of CO2e per year. So there'll be 15 megatons of CO2e avoided with the new carbon price compared at peak in 2031, compared to the reduction just under Alberta's business as usual. Now, this 20-year projection that I did and published a few months ago was based upon Alberta continuing to deploy wind and solar through 2040 without the carbon price. And so we would have expected to see their grid intensity continue to reduce down to more reasonable numbers compared to the rest of Canada, but still fairly high. With the carbon price, we expect them to get in line with the rest of Canada quite remarkably by 2035 and 2040. So that's an implication of the carbon price, something I'm very pleased to spend a lot of time analyzing, publishing on, and working with organizations on. Those are the slides I have for the United States and Canada. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. And what you are presenting here is indeed some bright prospects for Canada as well as the United States. Now we have the Biden administration in place. You talked a little bit about them. Can you let us know how would they start now dealing with this transformation? We hear that clean energy for them is not only renewable, but also nuclear power. But we also hear that a lot, of course, has already been happening on the state level. But are there any concrete plans, programs by Biden, by his administration, to kind of accelerate the renewable energy deployment, wind power in particular?
So the at the overarching level, Biden identified 4 crises that he and his administration had to deal with. COVID was number 1, the economy, climate, and I'm gapping on the 4th. But COVID obviously has taken Biden's and his administration's primary focus, as has the economic relief bill. As such, the climate file has not seen as much action. There are 2 primary things which are claimed. There was a claim of a Department of Energy announcement by the new Secretary of Energy, Granholm, who is former governor of Michigan, if memory serves, and well known in the community. She announced a plan to reduce the cost of utility scale solar by 50% by 2030. I did an analysis of that plan. It was decent funding for relatively small research in a few areas, mostly for solar, and not big on other stuff. But it was one of those, she as not representing a sector which did not have the primary focus in the first 100 days of the administration, needed to make an announcement that sounded good, and it got picked up by a lot of people, and everybody was very excited about it. I wasn't as excited about it, simply because it was a lot of funding for perovskite, which is a hoped for game changer in solar. But frankly, solar has globally seen 80% of cost reductions due to policy and due to mass manufacturing in China. So U.S. exploration of perovskite chemistries is not going to move the dial on utility scale solar costs.
I wonder sometimes, anyway, whether we still have a cost problem, because when you just look at the cost, wind and solar are now so cheap. I think we have other barriers and regulations that are stopping us. And then when translated that into the US, obviously some of the states have been doing a lot to remove those barriers. So you expect that Biden administration will do more on, I think, for example, subsidies are also such indirect barriers, and we need to put in a price after we give subsidies to fossil fuels. We add a price again on it to compensate, which is a bit funny. So why make things not simpler and just remove all the barriers which are there?
It's true. There are 3 or 4 things about the United States which are worth attending to. The first is that the fossil fuel subsidies are permanent subsidies in the U.S. tax code. Changing the permanent U.S. tax code requires Congress to actually have a supermajority, and so it's extremely difficult. The investment tax credit which applies to solar, and the production tax credit which applies to wind are temporary and renegotiated tax credits, which are much more amenable to congressional change. So I would expect an extension of both of those beyond this year as one of the announcements to come out of the Biden administration this year. Obviously, the renewable portfolio standards piece in the $2 trillion infrastructure deal, and there's because of the one of the easiest ways to think of the United States is as it's like the EU with a whole bunch of member states, but without a useful Brussels. And so each of the states has a tremendous amount of autonomy, more than you would consider as a province of Germany, for example. The Westphalian model of sovereignty grew out of the province of Westphalia in Germany in their first treaty with the Holy Roman Empire in 1394, I think it was, some number like that. And it started establishing what we consider to be the attributes of a nation state. Currency control, autonomy within its borders, freedom of language and religion within its borders. They tried to establish at least the base work for some of those, non-interference. And that's turned into what we consider to be a country. And so in Europe, the countries have ceded currency, for example, for the most part, to the EU, to the euro. In the United States, the states ceded currency control to America. But if you think about the variance of things that people have actually ceded in terms of sovereignty, the United States, the individual states are a lot more like countries than they are like provinces. As such, there's a lot of inability of the federal government to institute change inside a state. There's a whole lot of, they can do some things, but not everything. They have more taxation power, and they have more power over what happens inside their province, inside their US state. That means the federal government operates through federal tax breaks, like the production tax credit. It operates through renewable portfolio standards in places where it has stuff. It operates through infrastructure plans where it sets aside trillions of dollars, which are then controlled by the states for how and where they spend it. It's less like China, where the federal government has a significant amount more central control, and more like Brussels, which has more guidance stuff and less of a big stick. Other things we can expect then, the $2 trillion infrastructure plan then would expect some states to spend that on transforming their grid and putting in storage, putting in wind and solar, but it's going to be a state by state thing, and that's going to be a messy process that I'll be observing over the next 6 to 24 months. That all said, I do expect the production tax credit situation to change. And I do expect more climate-related announcements out of the Biden administration. You did mention storage. There's actually a substantial amount of effort that's being done on pumped hydro storage in the United States. It's not sexy. Nobody pays attention to it. But I think there are 42 projects going through approval cycles right now. The challenge in the United States, once again, because it has to be different, is that there are four separate federal bureaucracies, including the Army Corps of Engineers, who have to approve every hydroelectric dam in the United States. and the approvals process is long and arduous. For closed loop off river pumped hydro, the dominant model which we would expect moving forward, it has no riverine impacts. It has virtually no safety concerns compared to a major dam collapse in 1977 in the United States, and as a result, should have a very much less onerous regulatory regime applied to it, but it doesn't. There's attempts to streamline that. I'm hoping the Biden administration pays attention to that one and sorts that out.
So that's the simplest solution to storage. It's pump hydro indeed. I mean, now the Australians are going a lot for battery. Europe discusses a lot hydrogen partnerships with Morocco or Saudi Arabia, and US would go for the simple, maybe also cheapest solution. I think that sounds like not the worst idea, at least. Now there is, as we heard, there is a bill in the Congress which is aiming at 100% clean, not renewable, but clean power, which is being drafted by some Democrats. How would you see that initiative, and then also in relation to some of the states, because California certainly also is ambitious, and how would you see that situation? When we will, or let's put it the other way around, when will we see the first state in the United States being at 100% renewable energy in power?
That's an interesting projection question. I would have to say that it would probably be Washington or Oregon states in the upper, the Pacific Northwest, just below British Columbia, where I'm sitting now. They both have strong hydroelectric resources. They both have interior desert conditions with strong winds, similar to the Okanagan Valley up in British Columbia. They have offshore islands. British Columbia's wind farms are on our offshore islands more than anywhere else, simply because then the strong Pacific winds come in. And Washington State especially has had a strong history of being pro-climate change. One of the most aggressive climate plans of any Democratic candidate for president was from the former governor of Washington State. That said, I'm not going to make a projection because I'll just be wrong, but it's a really interesting question. I may just take away and do a bunch of analysis and publish something on simply because it's interesting. So thank you for that interesting question, Stefan.
Well, I mean, it's a pleasure to exchange some thoughts about this. And I think indeed at the moment, everybody is watching what's going on in North America, in particular in the United States, because as we heard, you were not there because that was in the middle of your night. China has now a plan of installing more than 50 gigawatt per year, just wind power in the next 5 years to come, 60 gigawatt in the next 5-year plan, and then reaching a wind power capacity of 800 gigawatt by 2030. So China is obviously on its way. Europe is discussing the Green Deal. And now everybody is, of course, expecting that the next big push will come from North America, from the United States. That's why I think we're all really excited and watching carefully what's going on. Well, I would, with this, come to the conclusion of our webinar. It's still morning where you are, but it's late night in some other parts of the world. We still have people here from Australia, from Japan, watching us. So, Michael, thank you very much for sharing this first-hand information with us about the United States and also Canada, of course, another important country. With this, let me say thank you from my side to all our speakers. It's been a great pleasure to have you all, and I think we've really been able to learn a lot about the latest wind developments around the world. I would also say, again, announce that the recordings will be available on our YouTube channel. It'll take a couple of days. The kind of uncut recording is already there right away because we're broadcasting it live. But if you want to, without searching through 2 hours, then you will wait just a couple of days. Then we will have that every country recording separately published. Thank you again. Also, thank you to our supporter, the partner of our webinar series, Profig Ventus. Thank you to everyone who makes it possible that we can have these webinars and provide information from around the world. Those of you who are want to support us, please feel invited to join World Wind Energy Association as a member, and we still also have the possibility of sponsorship options as being a partner of this webinar series, which will certainly continue. Now, I think what would be nice is if everybody now just briefly switches the camera on, that we can have a short screenshot at the end before I hand over back to Peter for a farewell for today. So everybody who is still with us, please switch on your camera. I mean, of course, if you want. If you don't want your picture to be shown, then just leave it as it is. Otherwise, we'll be happy to have some faces here. So everyone who wants to be on the picture, just switch on your camera. We'll be happy to show these pictures here. Thank you very much. And with this, yeah, we have some more people coming. That's even better. We do it again. So one more indeed, and a big smile from everyone. Yes. Thank you so much from my side. With this, handing back to Peter. Time for you to conclude today's meeting. Peter, you're muted.
All right, thank you. I'm now unmuted. Well, what a wonderful day. What a wonderful session. The information will be a very valuable essay on what's happening in the renewable energy world, in particular with regard to wind. And I think it's a great supplement to some of the other records, such as RED 21 and some of the information which we, WWEA, publish. It was very interesting hearing the expressions of the prospects of the future, of the rate of development. And I think it was one of the things which was most encouraging, was the positive way in which it was presented. So thank you again, if I can join with Stefan in saying thank you to all of those who participated. Thank you to those who listened and stayed hooked into this all-day webinar. And as we finish, I did at the beginning mention some things that I thought people might ask some questions about. What I'm going to do is suggest to Stefan that we might list those into some topics for future webinars and see how we go in getting some comments in relation to them, some of those issues. But as we are, it's a matter of thank you very much. Thank you to Stefan and Jean for the organisation of the event, both all of the work done in leading up to it, as well as the work of presenting. Thank you very much. And that concludes, so far as I'm concerned, and I think so far as we're all concerned, this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Have a good night, wherever you are. And stay safe and healthy.